Hello everyone, it's Becca from Becca Books and Bujo, and as you can see, today we are figuring out my best book of 2024 using a bracket. I've done a book bracket like this for the last 2 years, I think. I will link those videos down below. But I was able to find my best book of the year using this bracket. And I'm going to do the exact same thing this year because it's fun, and why not? It puts a lot of pressure on me, but I'm excited to figure it out. So, you've got the bracket here. We've got our 12 starting months on this side, and the only thing I'm going to do differently this year is I'm going to use a spinner wheel to decide where the months will fit on the bracket. Usually I've just gone January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and so on. But this way it'll be a little bit more random. And yeah, that's all I can say about that. So let's quickly do that. We will start with our first spin. So we're going to put July right there. Hide that slice and spin again. Fun that those two are next to each other anyway. Okay. I tried to change a setting and now I got messed up, so let's just remove May, remove June, and remove July. Sorry, and now we'll spin. I think I'll speed you through these really quick. Alrighty, we've got our matchups. We've got July versus June, May versus October, August versus November, March versus September, December versus January, and April versus February. So now we've got to go back and do some looking. Let's look at July and figure out what our best book is. Okay, looks like in July we read 14 books. I gave 5 stars. The 5 stars were Good Different by Meg Eden Kuyat, Beach Read by Emily Henry, Funny Story by Emily Henry, and Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. This one just came to me and I think we're going with it. We are going with Beach Read by Emily Henry for July. Alrighty, going back to June. In June, it looks like we read 16 books. I gave 6 5 stars. Holy smokes. Okay, so the first was A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers. Then we've got Laundry Love by Patrick Richardson. That was a nonfiction about doing laundry. Every Soul a Star by Wendy Mass. Oh no, that's wrong. I read the wrong line. I was going to say, that wasn't a 5 star. We've got The Violent Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. Then The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. And The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. Okay, so I am automatically going to get rid of Listen for the Lie and The Frozen River and The Violent Conspiracy and Laundry Love. So it's going to be between A Psalm for the Wild-Built and The Thursday Murder Club. And these are both very different books, if you have read them. A Psalm for the Wild-Built is like a cozy sci-fi, and The Thursday Murder Club is a cozy mystery of sorts, just full of wit and comedy. But I think for the way that it hit me, I am going to go with A Psalm for the Wild-Built as my best book for June. All right, we're going back to May. May was another big month, 16 books read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. So the first was The Woman in Me by Britney Spears, a memoir, obviously by the author. A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams, Manacled by Senlin Yu, and The One and Only Family by Catherine Applegate. Okay, this one's crazy because for literary merit-wise, it definitely is not the best book of the bunch, but for the way I devoured it and loved it so much, I am putting Manacled by Senlin Yu as the winner for May. Manacled is a Harry Potter fan fiction written about Hermione and Draco, and it's kind of like a Handmaid's Tale situation. Very, very good and interesting. Okay, let's jump to October. October was a bad month for me. 7 books read, and 2 were 5 stars. So the first was The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman, and the second is The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. Interesting. Neither of them I would say are like my best books of the year, but it's interesting that one of them needs to go in this bracket. And because I didn't put the other Richard Osman in, I think I'm going to put The Man Who Died Twice in for the winner of October. Although I don't know if it was better necessarily than the Thursday Murder Club, but that's okay. Maybe we can count the whole series. All right, moving to August. August was a fun month because it was Deck of TBR-a-thon. I read, 14 books? I don't know. This is hard to tell. Confusing. I don't think I finished. I did finish Every Heart a Doorway, but I didn't fill it in here. I did give it 5 stars. It was a repeat book. Oh no, I only gave it 4 stars. Okay, good to know. That's all right. Okay, so I finished 14 books and I gave 1, 2, 5 stars. The first was Flawless by Elsie Silver, and the second was The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. Okay, a romance versus a historical fiction. Tricky, but I'm just going with my gut with all of these and the ones that really stick with me. So we are going with Flawless by Elsie Silver as my best book of August. Loved that book. Stayed up late into the night reading that book. So I think it deserves this title. I should say here, if you're interested in looking at more of these spreads, I will have a flip through of my reading journal tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Just have to fix these little tassels and we'll go to November. I don't remember November being the greatest reading month either. 11 books it looks like, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. The first was The Storied Life of A.J. Fickrey. Then we've got The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. Oh, the next is a reread of Harry Potter. We will scratch that one. And the last 5-star is Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet A. Jacobs. Interesting. Whew, The Alice Network. I think it's going to be The Alice Network versus The Storied Life of A.J. Fickrey. And neither of them are like jumping out at me as, wow, that was a phenomenal book. But I think the story that impacted me most was The Storied Life of A.J. Fickrey. So that is going to be our November winner. All right, we'll jump over here to March. March was a huge month because it was middle grade March. So, we'll jump to these. I read 31 books and 7 of them were 5 stars. Holy smokes. Okay, so the first is Matilda by Roald Dahl. Then we've got The One and Only Ruby by Catherine Applegate, which is the One and Only Family, or the One and Only Ivan series. Next, I gave a 5-star to Iceberg by Jennifer A. Nielsen, a phenomenal historical fiction and mystery about the sinking of the Titanic. Oh, I reread Guernsey, but we can't put that in here, so we'll scratch that because I read that for the first time last year. So I will not count that as a 5-star for this year. A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus, New Kid by Jerry Craft, and Alebrijes by Donna Barba Higuera. This one's tricky just because there's so many to choose from. So many great books. I really, really love Matilda. I don't think Matilda will be my best book of the year, though. But is it the best book of the month? I'm going to scratch out The One and Only Ruby just because it's the third in a series. Between Matilda and Iceberg, I think I'd give it to Matilda. Between Matilda and A Place to Hang the Moon, oh, that one is so beautiful. A Place to Hang the Moon is a historical fiction taking place in World War II. I talked about it in my best books of the year. I'll put that video up above. But just such a beautiful story about 3 siblings trying to find their home during the London Blitz. New Kid is not going to get it, but Alebrijes is also in the running. So Matilda, A Place to Hang the Moon, or Alebrijes. All such different. Like, Matilda is a classic. A Place to Hang the Moon is a fairly new historical fiction. And Alebrijes is this interesting sci-fi story about the end of the world. This is very tricky. I'm going to get rid of Alebrijes just because I feel like out of the 3, that's the least favorite. And I think just for the loveliness and the uniqueness of the story, I'm going to go with A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus for my March winner. All right, moving on to September. September was a big slumpy month for me because it was after Deck of TBR-a-thon. So I read 7 books and only 1 5-star. Interesting. So the best book of the month is The Only Plane in the Sky by Garrett M. Grath, which is audio retellings or audio stories of the people who were affected by 9/11. Wow. Okay, so I guess that's going to be it. The only other contender is Elsewhere with 4.5, but just the stories were phenomenal in The Only Plane in the Sky. So I guess that will be our September winner. All right, December is a little tricky because we're not done. We're not quite done with December, and I actually have a couple books to add on to here, but none of them are 5 stars. Interesting. I did finish God of the Woods, which was not a 5-star. I'm in the middle of 2 romances. One is a Christmas romance called The Christmas Fix by Lucy Score. I don't think that will be a 5-star. And I'm also in the middle of When in Rome by Sarah Adams, and it's really, really cute, but I don't know if it will be a 5-star. So I think my best book of December is going to be Dinner for Vampires by by Bethany Joy Lenz, which is a nonfiction, a memoir about Bethany's time in a cult while she was on the cult TV show One Tree Hill. Just interesting how many nonfiction I have on here. I guess only these 2, but just putting The Only Plane in the Sky made me think that I had more. So we are doing Dinner for Vampires here. All right, December is going up against January, the very first month of the year, which was a huge reading month. 19 books were completed, 3 of which were 5 stars. So the first was Dialogues on Race, which was a collection of essays by multiple different authors. The second was The Women by Kristen Hanna, and the third was A Winter in New York by Josie Silver. And I don't know if you could tell by the way I said it, but the winner of January will be The Women by Kristen Hanna. I loved that book. I love most of what Kristen Hanna has written. And yeah, that's going to be That's going to be the obvious winner for me. All right, down to our last 2 months. April. Let's check it out. When was April? You know, the 4th month of the year. When was it? Here it is. I read 11 books. Actually, I only read 10 books, but I read one book twice. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. The first is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Then we've got A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice by Rebecca Connolly, which is another Titanic historical fiction. But actually, was it nonfiction? I can't remember. It was such a narrative nonfiction that maybe it was real or not. It had such real parts. Anyway, okay, moving on. We've got Broken Horses by Brandi Carlile, and then we've got The Idea of You by Robin Lee. It's going to be between The Idea of You and Just for the Summer. And it feels harsh to be putting these two together or up against each other because The Idea of You was just such a fun, smutty time. No real content that mattered. However, I loved it and I read it twice, back to back. Whereas Just for the Summer definitely dealt with harder topics and more real people that I could actually see in my everyday life. The Idea of You is about a pop star who is 18 years old who falls in love with a 40-year-old woman. And that's really not realistic, but super fun to read and put myself in the shoes of Solène because it's basically a fan fiction about Harry Styles, and I adore Harry Styles. But moving on, Just for the Summer is a romance between two people who have a curse. They think that whoever they date, when they break up, that person goes on to find their soulmate, and it's just so fun. And yeah, they fake date, hoping to break the curse. Man, this is tricky. Just for the Summer versus The Idea of You. I think I have to go with Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. It just is deeper and will stick with me longer. Not that I don't love the story of The Idea of You, but I think Just for the Summer hits a little bit more for my mind and my heart than The Idea of You. Alrighty, Just for the Summer. All right, and our last month is February. Oh, I had this cute library theme. I read 11 books, and it looks like 2 of them were 5 stars. So we're between Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan and Falling by TJ Newman. Small Things Like These I talked about in my best books of the year. It is a short little novella about a man helping out a girl who lives in a convent, and Falling is a airplane thriller about a plane falling from the sky. But I think I will be giving February to Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. That one wasn't too tricky. Alrighty, now we've got our 12 best books of the year, supposedly. Again, it's a little bit warped or misconstrued because we only got to pick one best book of the month when there could have been 3 that could have been on this bracket. But I just think it's fun to do it this way. So let's jump to our first matchup. We've got July versus June, Beach Read versus A Psalm for the Wild Built. Very different books. You should see me. I'm like talking with my hands like crazy. Beach Read is just such a great romance where the characters deal with real life problems and get through them together, but also separately. A Psalm for the Wild Built is, just, like I said, cozy sci-fi about a tea monk. They are searching for who they are, what their life's meaning should be, and they meet a robot who is wondering what human beings are all about. I think for pure enjoyment, which is how I rate my books and how we're going to go moving forward picking these books, I am going to choose Beach Read as my book moving forward. I just ate it up, loved it. Not that I didn't eat up A Psalm for the Wild Built. And honestly, some of the messages and themes in A Psalm for the Wild Built will stick with me longer, but the enjoyment of Beach Read, it is one of my favorite romances now. So we're doing that. Okay, next up, we've got Manacled versus The Man Who Died Twice. And we are giving this one to Manacled, which just seems so weird, but we're doing it. A fan fiction is making it on to the next round of the bracket, and I'm okay with it. All right, we've got Flawless versus The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry, and I am giving this one to Flawless. It has been a romance-heavy year. Do we see that? For me, I think romance was maybe my most read genre, or at least the genre that I loved the most out of all of my books. So that's interesting to see the trends. We've got The Only Plane in the Sky versus A Place to Hang the Moon. It's hard to put nonfiction against fiction in the first place, but I am going to go ahead with A Place to Hang the Moon. Fiction and stories are just more so my jam than nonfiction. So, yeah, that's just why we're doing this. A Place to Hang the Moon. All right, next up, this is an easy match. We've got The Women versus Dinner for Vampires. You saw that Dinner for Vampires was only a 4.5 star, whereas The Women, I knew from the beginning of the year would be in my best books of the year. So The Women is moving on. It could make it all the way, you guys. I don't know. Next up, we've got Small Things Like These versus Just for the Summer. Again, pure vibes and enjoyment. I loved reading Just for the Summer a little bit more than Small Things Like These. Similar to A Psalm for the Wild Built over here, Small Things Like These may have some themes that will stick with me a little bit more. However, just the way I read Just for the Summer and ate it up, similar to Beach Read, that's why Just for the Summer is going to move on. All right, we're down to our top 6. This is crazy. It feels like it's going to be romance against romance, but we do have a fantastical romance. You call that fantasy romance or romantasy, I guess, but a fan fiction and historical fiction, or 2 historical fictions here. So let's just go to the next matchup. Beach Read versus Manacled. This one's going to Beach Read. Obviously, Manacled was great and made it this far, but Beach Read just will stick with me a little bit more. Here we've got Flawless versus A Place to Hang the Moon, and it's gonna go to Flawless, which just seems crazy that romance is in my top. 2 romances are already in my top. And now let's see. The Women versus Just for the Summer. Ufta. Ufta, ufta. My Minnesotan is showing. Which should mean that Just for the Summer should win because Abby Jimenez is a Minnesotan. However, The Women just was such an impactful story. And the way that Kristen Hanna can evoke emotions in her readers, it's got to be The Women. So now we are down to our top 3 books of the year. Kind of. But in this case, yes, our top 3. We've got Beach Read by Emily Henry, Flawless by Elsie Silver, and The Women by Kristen Hanna. And I think we all know it and can say it together. I kind of called it from the beginning of the year when I read this book and completed it midway through the first month of the year. We are giving the best book of the year to The Women by Kristen Hanna. If you have not read anything by Kristen Hanna or have not read The Women, I would really push you to do so, advise you to do so. She writes wonderful historical fiction. She does her research and writes them so well, I feel. Yes, she does manipulate your emotions a little bit, but that's because the events she's writing about are so emotionally impactful. So, my best book of 2024 is The Women by Kristen Hanna, and I couldn't be more happy about that. I just really love Kristen Hanna, and I feel like anything she writes will work for me in some way or another. Anyway, let me know what your best book of 2024 was. I would love to hear in the comments down below. What were your favorites? Or if you picked a top favorite, what was it? I would love to hear that. I'd even probably compile a list and try to read some of your favorites. Did you share any similarities with me? It'd be great to have some bookish conversation with you down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very, very soon. Bye.